I'm Jennifer Bassett from Thrive in Grade 5. In this video, we are going to talk about some 18th century sayings that are still around today that our upper elementary students may or may not have heard. Many of these statements are idioms, and if our students understand these idioms, it'll help with their reading comprehension and their historical background knowledge. So I have a few questions for you. If I call someone a big wig, what does that mean? If I told you to take a gander, what would that mean? If I suggest that you mind your P's and Q's, what am I telling you to do? It's fun to point out sayings and idioms that were used a long time ago that we still use today. Have you ever heard a teacher friend say, "There are big wigs in the building"? Maybe people from the district are here to observe your school. Many 18th century Americans wore wigs to protect themselves from lice. They would keep their hair very short or shave their heads, and they would wear wigs on top of their heads, of course. And wigs were a fashion statement. Wigs were a way to show wealth. The bigger and fancier your wig was, the more money you had. So being a big wig was a way to show your wealth or importance. May I take a gander at your beautiful new car? Well, a gander is a male goose, and we know that geese have long necks. So when a person cranes their neck or goes out of the way to look at something, we say they are taking a gander. Josie, mind your P's and Q's when you are with Grandpa. You know he's uptight. Well, in 18th century taverns, the workers that served drinks needed to keep track of how many pints and quarts the customers were drinking because they wanted to make sure that the customers paid what they owed. So mind your P's and Q's, or mind your pints and quarts, has morphed into pay attention to what you're doing. I told Mary Beth to arrive to the meeting on time. Instead, she stopped for breakfast and was half an hour late. Her boss gave her the cold shoulder all day. We don't want to experience the cold shoulder from anyone, of course. We've all had guests who've stuck around too long, who've overstayed their welcome. This happened in the 18th century as well. It's awkward to tell guests to leave or ask them to leave. So instead, they might give them the cold shoulder or serve cold meat instead of warm meals. That would give the guests a little clue that it's time to get going. John, come sit by me. Let's chew the fat. When 18th century people sat together for a long time, they might need something to chew on or keep their mouths busy. So chewing fat was what they would use. They would use some dried fat back, usually from a pig, and just chew the fat. That way there was something for them to chew on when they weren't talking. Over time, this has become chewing the fat, meaning that friends were participating in a gab or gossip session. The mess in the garage is out of control. We need to bite the bullet and clean up this weekend. In the 18th century, patients were often treated without anesthetic. It's horrible to imagine. They were given a bullet to chew on during the procedure. So biting the bullet has become something that means a person is doing something they don't want to do. It's undesirable or unavoidable. Frank, your cooking isn't better than mine. You need to get off your high horse. In the early days in Colonial America, military leaders led their men on horseback. Dignitaries would lead parades on horseback. Riding horseback while everyone else was walking was a sign of superiority. So over time, get off your high horse became a way to tell someone, hey, you're being arrogant. Stop being arrogant, or stop behaving in an arrogant manner. I wanted to hire a band to play during the party, but they cost an arm and a leg. Well, allegedly, there's some debate about this, but allegedly, 18th century painters would charge more money to include your arms and your legs in paintings because they were more difficult to paint. Over the years, costing an arm and a leg has become an expression that means something is outrageously expensive. I used to play football with Greg in high school. Now he's a big shot lawyer at a downtown firm. During the colonial era, important men who arrived in a city were often greeted with a cannon salute, or what was called a big shot. So now a big shot is a person who is prominent or has high social standing. Time for bed, kids. Good night. Sleep tight. We've all heard that one. Good night. Sleep tight. Today we use bed box springs to support our mattresses, but in the 18th century, mattresses were supported by ropes. The ropes were tied to the bottom of the bed. Mattress would be put on top. If the ropes were loose, the mattress would sag and be uncomfortable. If you tightened your ropes, you would have a better night of sleep. Your mattress wouldn't be saggy in the middle. So sleep tight became a way to remind a person to tighten their bed ropes before going to bed. And I will add on this, a lot of times you hear good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. Well, bed bugs were a problem in the 18th century as well. So when someone says good night, sleep tight, they're saying make sure your bed ropes are tightened, and they're also saying watch out for bed bugs. Yuck. We wouldn't want to sleep with bed bugs today, right? But definitely a problem in the 18th century. I hope you've enjoyed learning some of these 18th century sayings. I would love to hear your favorite 18th century saying in the comments. Talk to you soon.